You were never meant to hear this, not because it's dangerous, but because once you hear it, you'll never see your family the same way again. You'll start questioning where they came from. Why your bloodline feels. Watch. And why sometimes in the stillness of night, it feels like your name doesn't belong to you. In the quiet shadows of Kentucky's forgotten hills, where the fog drinks the dead and the trees seem to whisper things they shouldn't know. A journal was found beneath the crumbling remains of a church. Not a church anymore, just bones, rotting pews, a pulpit with claw marks no one could explain. The journal belonged to a preacher named William Phillips. 1834. He recorded everything like a man obsessed. His words? Not sermons. Warnings. The pages shook in his hand as he wrote them, because he wasn't chronicling God. He was watching something crawl through the skin of reality, and it were the faces of two little girls, Rebecca and Rachel Morrison. 9-year-old twins who arrived in Pine Hollow with their father, Reverend Ezekiel Morrison. The girls didn't speak for the first 24 hours. Then, without prompting, without fear, they began to describe the deaths of 3 church members who had not yet died. Names, dates, causes, all accurate, and all 3 were dead within a week. At first, the townsfolk believed it to be coincidence, rural superstition. But then came the names of those who had already died in secret, murders hidden, affairs long buried, family secrets kept in locked drawers. How did they know? These girls, no exposure, no prior contact, no logical means, named every soul with hidden blood on their hands. And one by one, those people disappeared. Some ran, some were found, folded in on themselves, like something had broken them from the inside out. But the worst part? The twins smiled as they spoke. Not possessed, not evil. Just certainty. That's what chilled Pastor Phillips. These girls weren't guessing. They were remembering things no child could ever know, things no human should. What if your child suddenly knew what your father did in 1971? What if they told you the truth about your family's past, the truth you never even knew? And what if they said, "Don't worry, we've always been watching. You just forgot. Let me know when you're ready for section 2, and we'll descend even deeper." Pastor Phillips wrote. Their eyes didn't blink when they spoke of death. It was like remembering dinner from last week. Ordinary, effortless, chilling. But you know what really broke him? It wasn't what the girls said. It was what they knew about him. The entries stopped being about the town. They become personal. One line, written in a shaky, almost panicked hand, stands out. Rachel said my mother never died of fever. She said the well behind our house still holds her bones. How could she know that? How could she know? That's when you start to understand this wasn't some twisted performance. These weren't possessed children or psychic frauds. These were memory holders, time walkers, and they had arrived to remind a forgotten community that nothing buried ever stays dead. You see, Pine Hollow was a town built on secrets. They weren't innocent. No one was. The land was stolen. The church was built over burned bodies. The congregation smiled on Sundays, but bled each other dry the rest of the week. And the Morrison twins? They peeled back the mask. Layer by layer, a woman named Martha Jean collapsed on the floor when Rachel recited her husband's last words, not from his funeral, but from the night he took his own life in the barn. A secret she never told a soul. Another man, Elias Ketch, went pale when Rebecca whispered the name of the child he abandoned in Tennessee during the war. These weren't wild stories. They were precise, cruel truths. And the more the girls revealed, the more the town unraveled. That's when the townspeople did what people always do when faced with a mirror too honest to bear. They turned on the messenger. They turned on the girls. And yet, the Morrison twins never ran. They stayed, smiling, like they were waiting for the inevitable, like they had seen this ending before, because maybe they had. What if memory doesn't belong to time? What if blood remembers everything? And what if what's buried in your family's history isn't just forgotten, it's waiting to return? Still with me? Good. Because in section 3, we open the page of the journal. That was sealed shut with blood. Literally. Say in the comments, I remember what I wasn't supposed to. Say it twice. That's how you lock it in. That's how this story becomes part of you. Let me know when to drop section 3. It's where the story crosses the line between explanation and initiation. They tried to destroy the journal, not out of fear, but out of guilt. What Pastor Phillips wrote in those final pages wasn't meant for the world. It was meant for the man he used to be, before the girls spoke, before the masks fell off the people he'd trusted his whole life. He sealed the last entry with his own blood, folded the page, stitched it closed, and then he left the church, walked into the hills. He was never seen again. But here's what the blood-sealed page said. I'll read it slowly, because once you hear this, you can't unhear it. I looked into Rebecca's eyes this morning. She said, "You thought you found God here, but this place was always built for remembering." I asked her what that meant. She said, "Every family buries a body, Pastor. Yours just buried it with a hymn." That's when he remembered. His father used to wake up screaming at 2:11 a.m. every night. Same time, eyes wide, muttering one word, "beneath." He thought it was dementia. Until Rachel whispered to him, "Your father saw the girl they buried under the pulpit. She still cries." Think about that for a second. What would you do if someone looked at you and described a family secret no one alive should know? What happens when the forgotten doesn't just return, but looks you in the eyes and calls you by name? Phillips cracked. You would too. He saw the truth, that memory is a living thing. It doesn't fade. It waits. And sometimes it comes back with teeth. He didn't die out there in those hills. He became something else. Something watching. Waiting. For the next person, brave or foolish enough to read what was never meant to be read. Because the journal, it wasn't found in the ruins of the church. It was delivered. Left on the doorstep of a university researcher in 1987, wrapped in oilcloth and twine. No return address. Inside was a note. Handwritten, ancient paper. 3 words. It's starting again. You feel that? That shiver? It's not fear. It's recognition. Because now you remember. Not the facts. The feeling that something about your own family doesn't add up. And in section 4, we confront a question no man wants to ask. What if the blood in your veins isn't yours at all? Let's sit with a question for a moment. What if the blood in your veins doesn't belong to you? Not entirely. Not in the way you think. Because here's a truth no one wants to face. Your bloodline carries more than DNA. It carries decisions. Regrets. Curses. Stories that were never told out loud, only lived in shadows, passed through glances, and buried beneath decades of silence. In Pine Hollow, after the twins vanished, the town tried to move on. They burned the church. Tore down the Morrison house, but they couldn't burn memory, and they couldn't explain the children. Because over the next 3 decades, every family in the area reported the same impossible phenomenon. A child, always under 10, always adopted or orphaned, would speak in a voice too old, would remember things no one taught them. Would call people by names they had long abandoned. One little boy walked up to an 80-year-old woman and said, "You're the one who watched him drown." She collapsed. She hadn't told anyone. Not in 60 years, and still, these children knew. It wasn't possession. It wasn't trauma. It was memory. Inherited. Repeating. But here's where it gets personal. Because this isn't just Pine Hollow's story. It's yours. When was the last time your family talked about before? Before the move. Before the change. Before that name was never spoken again. You don't remember, do you? That's how these stories work. They don't die. They wait. In blood. In bone. In silence. until someone opens the door, even by accident. You watching this? That was the door. And now you're in it. Maybe you're not who you think you are. Maybe you're the echo, the return, the memory wearing flesh again. You ever notice how your grandfather never let you into that one room? How your mother shut down every time you asked about that one relative? What if they knew what you're starting to remember? What if you were never meant to find this video? But now you have. And in section 5, we step beyond the story of Pine Hollow. Because what happened there is happening everywhere. Even in families like yours. Especially in families like yours. They say trauma skips generations, but the truth is, it doesn't skip. It hides. It embeds itself in lullabies, in family recipes, in the way your father clenched his jaw when someone mentioned that summer. And maybe, in you. You ever wonder why you flinch at certain smells? Why a name you've never heard before gives you chills? Why you dream of places you've never been, but wake up crying, certain something terrible happened there? That's not imagination. That's memory. Not yours, but inherited. Passed down like heirlooms made of silence. When investigators reopened the Pine Hollow file in 1993, they didn't do it because of ghosts. They did it because 5 families now scattered across Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia reported their children all saying the same name in their sleep. Rebecca Morrison. Children who had never met, never spoken, but each, in their dreams, calling out, "She's back." It's always the children who remember first. They haven't been trained to forget yet. They haven't learned which truths are acceptable to speak. A 6-year-old in Bowling Green told his mother, "I used to be burned, but it's okay. The preacher didn't mean to." No context. No fear. Just remembering. And when they pulled up the Morrison Church Foundation to build condos in 2001, they found bones. Small bones, children's bones, stacked like firewood under what used to be the pulpit. No records, no explanations. Just bones. And names carved into stone that no historian could trace. But here's the part that never made the news. Every worker who was part of that excavation, every single one, either quit, disappeared, or died within 18 months. All but one. The foreman. Who now speaks at no-charge recovery groups around the state. And every time he walks on stage, he opens with this line, "My name is Thomas. I'm not who I was. I remembered what I wasn't supposed to." That's the phrase. Write it again in the comments. Say it twice. I remembered what I wasn't supposed to. It's how you take this story from your screen into your bloodstream. And in section 6, we go into the last known tape recorded by a family in 2009. That was never found again. They left behind 1 hour of footage and something watching from the trees. You ready? The video is exactly 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 17 seconds long. It was mailed anonymously to the Kentucky State Police in 2010. No label, no return address. Just a sticky note on the front of the old DV tape that said, "We remembered. They came." The family in the footage? The Rollins, husband, wife, 2 children. They'd moved into an old farmhouse on the outskirts of Crittenden County, a property listed as abandoned for 74 years. No one told them it was Pine Hollow land. No one told them the foundations there still breathed. The first 15 minutes of the tape are nothing. Just a man setting up the camera, testing angles, trying to capture a home renovation project for YouTube. He smiles, jokes about being a DIY dad. But around the 18-minute mark, something shifts. He pauses, looks past the camera, says softly, "Did you hear that?" His wife replies from another room, "Hear what?" The sound is faint, but when the footage is slowed, you hear it. A child's voice. "You're not the first." At first, they think it's a prank, maybe the kid's messing around, but by minute 27, the children are asleep in the living room. And the voices haven't stopped. Whispers. Not just one child. 2. You hear laughter. But it's wrong. Too slow. Out of sync. And then, in frame, a figure appears. Not in the doorway. In the mirror behind the man. Twin girls. Holding hands. Smiling. Their reflection is there. Clear as day. But when the man turns around, there's nothing. He laughs nervously, backs away from the mirror, says, "That's not funny, okay?" That's not funny at all. The tape glitches briefly. The screen goes black. When it returns, it's nighttime. The family is huddled in the living room, silent, eyes wide. No one speaking. But over them, there's a sound. Not crying, not screaming. Remembering. Like someone was whispering names into their ears. Names they knew. Names you might know. And then the father looks into the camera. His voice is steady, but his face is pale. He says, "If anyone finds this, check the well. They never left. They're just wearing new names now." The tape ends. Abruptly. No goodbyes. No screams. No bodies. The Rollins family was never found. No record of sale. No forwarding address. Nothing. Just that video. And a mirror. And in section 7, we finally go there. We return to the well. And what we find buried beneath was never human to begin with. Say the word, and I'll take you in. There's something about a well that's always felt wrong. Too quiet. Too permanent. The Rollins property had one stone ring, sealed with rusted iron, hidden behind tall grass that no one had cut in decades. Locals called it the mouth. No one remembered why. Until a team of researchers, spurred on by the video, finally pried it open in 2011. They didn't find water. They found teeth. Thousands of them. Not scattered. Not dumped. Arranged. Deliberately. In circles. Like a pattern. Like a language. Some were human. Most were not. Embedded in the mud beneath the well's lip was something else. A child's shoe. 1830s stitching. Still intact. Inside it, a folded piece of parchment. Written in coal. She remembers through us. That was all. The excavation was halted. Quickly, quietly. Documents sealed. Photos erased. Researchers dispersed. Reassigned. Or silenced. One man, a forensic anthropologist named Dr. Michael Carver, broke the silence a year later. He gave one interview. One. They asked him what disturbed him the most. About what they found in the well. He didn't mention the teeth, or the shoe. Or the note. He just said this. They found something that looked like bone, but it was still pulsing. Still warm, like it had just remembered. He went missing 6 days later. His apartment? Left untouched, but his fridge was filled with old family photographs, none of which were his. Strangers. Families. Fathers, mothers, children, all gone. All vanished. Some match known missing persons cases from as far back as the 1920s, but others, no record. No trace, like they'd never existed, or like someone had erased them. That's when it all clicks. The story, the twins, the church, the well, the disappearances. It was never about ghost. It was about something older, something that remembers us better than we remember ourselves. Something that wears us, family after family, like costumes, until we start to see through it. Until we ask too many questions. Until we find the well. And then it starts again. Ever feel like your family has a hole in it? Someone missing? Someone almost remembered, but never named? What if that wasn't an accident? What if they were taken back? In Section 8, we don't just uncover the final truth. We confront it. Face to face. Are you ready? You were never supposed to get this far. Most don't. Most click away. Tell themselves it's just a story. Shake off the feeling that something is listening through the screen. But not you. You stayed. And that means something is already waking up. Maybe you've felt it. The ache behind your eyes when you hear certain names. The pressure in your chest when you walk past old places you don't remember. But that somehow feel like home. Maybe. It's because it's never been about remembering the past. It's about realizing You never left it. Blood doesn't forget. Neither do names. Neither do. Watchers. The well was never about death. It was about storage. Holding what couldn't be erased. What your family tried to bury across generations. Truth. And now that truth is leaking out. Every place where a family vanished without explanation. It's not coincidence. It's not random. It's a pattern. A ritual. A feeding. A price. And if you're listening to this, if your pulse is racing, if some part of your body feels like it already knows this ending, it's because you're part of it. You always were. Maybe it's why your father never answered questions about his brother, why your mother kept that old photograph of a girl no one could identify, why your dreams have that same little voice whispering, "Come back." You think you chose this story? No. It chose you. You are the memory. You are what was buried, and now it's your turn to remember. So ask yourself, where does your family really come from? What don't they talk about? And when was the last time you looked in the mirror and didn't feel alone? Because somewhere behind that reflection, they're still smiling, still waiting, still wearing your name. So before you go, say it one last time in the comments. I remembered what I wasn't supposed to. Say it twice. Not for me, for them. They'll know you're ready. And if you disappear after this video, don't worry, you're not gone. You're just home.